Hello everybody, it's quite early, we're in my garden and we're here for two reasons. The first is that it's sunny and I plan to make use of every second of sunshine this summer because as you know, the past few weeks it's just been raining. And the second reason is that we've got some grass seed down and there's a pigeon who keeps eating it all, so I'm monitoring the situation. Don't worry though, I am armed. I don't know how to turn it off though. Okay, anyway, this video is not about the sun, my garden, or pigeons. It's about how to choose your best photos. Now, there are two kinds of photographers I've spoken about before on this channel. The kind who goes out for a day of photography and takes 3 photos, and the kind, like me, who goes out for a day and takes 3,000 photos. And there are pros and cons to each kind, I think. The advantage of taking lots and lots and lots of photos for me is that I feel surer that I've got the result I'm after by the time I get home. But of course, when I get home, it can be quite a painful process. I've got water all over my laptop. I didn't think about that. So when I get home with my thousands of photos, I need an effective way to choose the best ones that's consistent, that works, and that doesn't make me pull too much of my hair out. Now, there are typically 2 places that I choose my best photos. The first is out in the field, and well, I'll go and get my camera so I can show you. So, as I say, the first is in the field when I'm out taking photos. Now, if I'm taking hundreds of photos of a particular scene because there are clouds moving, there's a subject that I'm getting to move around the frame, anything like that, then sometimes in the field I get a sense of when I've taken the best photo. So, for example, let's say that I'm taking a photo of a car going down a valley road or something. There will be times when I take a photo and I look through the EVF, and in the half-second playback that I get, I can tell that that is the one. And anytime I get that feeling, all I do is flick my camera to manual focus, put my hand over the lens and take a photo. That just means that I have a black frame immediately after the photo that I think has worked. And it means that when I get back into Lightroom, that's easy to find and I can check that one out first. The second method of choosing my best photo is a little bit more convoluted, and that's in Lightroom when I get home. Now, my advice with this is that whenever you get home from a day of shooting, particularly if you've got thousands of photos, thousands of important photos potentially, that you should import to Lightroom as soon as you get home. Now, I don't delete a single image. Now, I appreciate that some people will think that's absolutely bonkers because I've got probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of photos that are rubbish, never going to be used, useless. The reason that I do it though is that I've had clients in the past who retrospectively have asked me for photos from shoots that I didn't originally give them, and I thought they were just useless, but the client has absolutely loved them. So I've kind of got into a practice of never getting rid of anything because I just don't see the advantage in it. Storage is cheap, it doesn't take all that long to import photos, and as far as I can tell there's no real downside and there is potentially lots of upside, so I don't delete anything. And I would advise importing as soon as you get home, but I wouldn't advise sorting through and choosing your best photos when you get home, because typically this is not a fun job. It's not the sort of thing that you want to do after a full day of shooting when you're tired. Now, I'm using stars in Lightroom, which I think is possibly the simplest but also the most effective tool in the program, certainly for me. And I have a bit of a system whereby I award photos a certain number of stars based on what they offer. So, in order for a photo to get a single star, it needs to achieve 2 things. It needs to be both interesting and sharp. And by sharp, I mean sharp in the right places, so that the subject needs to be sharp. It needs to be in focus, basically. So I go through all my photos, seeing if they meet this criteria. At the same time, I'm looking for 2 other criteria to possibly award 2 other stars. The first is, does the composition work? Now, it's not necessarily the end of the world if I don't think the composition works, because potentially I can go back and crop the images later. But if I have an interesting and in focus photo and it works compositionally, then it's awarded 2 stars. Also, at this point, I'm looking for, is it exposed correctly? And if it is, it gets another star. So in this kind of first round of looking at the photos, they can potentially earn up to 3 stars. So once I've been through all my photos awarding up to 3 stars, I then can change my filter in Lightroom to only show photos that have at least 2 stars, which means that the photos that I'm looking at are all interesting and in focus, and they're at least either compositionally good or they're exposed well. Now, I've found in the past that images don't have to be compositionally great, because sometimes you can get away with cropping and that can completely change the feel of a photo, or you can just change the exposure. A lot of files in modern cameras are just incredible, and if you don't nail the exposure in the field, it's not actually the end of the world. However, I have found that if you need to both crop and change the exposure, then more often than not you're not going to end up with all that incredible a file. So I only bother starting to edit photos that, as I say, are in focus and interesting, and either compositionally good or exposed well. So all I'll do at this stage is go through the 2-star images and either correct or change the composition by cropping, or I'll fix the exposure, whichever one of those is not right. And at the end of that process, I should end up with a few more 3-star photos. That's the point in which I start looking at playing around with editing a bit more, and I'm basically looking to choose which photos I think could be the best photos. If there's a photo that I think could be the best one, I give it another star. At the end of that process, I'm hoping to end up with half a dozen images maybe that have 4 stars. And the whole point of the 4th star is that they get elevated for me to pick the best one from a much smaller selection of good ones. And then at the end of that, it's just a case of picking the best one, which you won't be surprised to hear gets the 5th star. So yeah, I'm hoping that process makes sense. I've tried loads over the years, and this just seems to be the one that works for me. I appreciate it sounds a little bit complex as well, but to be honest, when you've done it for thousands of images, you can start to rattle kind of 2 stars, 3 stars, 1 star, all of that immediately as soon as you see a photo, basically. And as I say, it's best done when you've got fresh eyes, because as you can probably see now that I've told you about it, it's not the most fun you can possibly have, and you don't want to do it after a day in the mountains or a sleepless night in a tent. Also, it's best to do it in a place that's not as bright as a garden, because I can't really see my screen. I can see it better than when the sun comes, to be honest though, which actually I don't really care about the photos. I want the sun to come now because it's really cold, and I've sort of shot ahead and put shorts and flip-flops on, which it's about 6 degrees. Thanks for watching. You see that pile there? That's all the pre-orders of the books, and I'm hoping they're going to be on their way to you in the next 2, 3 or 4 days. I'm hoping the shipping company is finally going to come and get them from me. They've taken a bit longer than I expected. I know I'm a couple of weeks behind schedule, but I really, really appreciate your support and your patience, and I can't wait to get them to you. So, cheers!